Hello, I'm Martin Dowden, and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views, and analysis you need on Thursday, the 13th of November, just 2 days away from undoubted Greek drama in Athens.
The goalkeeper, he's given it straight to Dykes. It must be. Yes! Goal! Lyndon Dykes seals the victory for Scotland.
Scotland somehow came out on top last month against Greece, but we're facing really tough opponents who caused us problems in the past.
Constantinos slips it to Piraeus, and it's finished by Solis. What a start to the second half, and Greece have got a third goal.
We take a look at Greece to see what's happened since they missed out on qualification and assess the big question: can and will Scotland take another step towards a long-awaited World Cup?
Now the next thing is the World Cup, and everyone wants that, all the players, all the staff and the whole nation, and I just think in general we deserve it as a team for what we've shown over the past number of years.
Lyndon Dykes certainly thinks Scotland should be there. We'll give you the guide to Greece.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
I'm joined by a couple of guests ahead of this one. Robbie Neilson, the former Hearts and Dundee United manager. Thanks for joining us, Robbie. And Stephen Kountourou, Greek football expert from the Hellas Football Podcast. Thanks very much, Stephen. We could certainly use your insight. Plenty to get into with both of you. Let's get straight into it. Looking at Saturday's opponents, Greece. Robbie, I'll start with you. Can you believe Scotland managed to win that last encounter if you look back on it?
Yeah, I think it was a great result, but I think, as Stephen will touch on, the Greek national team have been struggling over the last few years. It's been a number of tournaments since they made it to one of the big ones. So, yeah, it was a great result, but I think this week is obviously a defining week for Scotland if we're going to qualify. 2 huge games starting on Saturday over in Athens.
Stephen, when you reflect back on that game against Scotland, can you actually believe Greece didn't get at least something out of it?
In some ways, because the first 60 minutes I thought we were pretty brilliant, to be honest. We missed a couple of absolute sitters in the first half, and when Konstantinos Tsimikas opened the scoring with his first ever professional goal, which is a stat I still kind of find surprising in itself, I thought, okay, we're well underway. Now it's time to get the second. I thought we'd be defensively solid enough to hold Scotland, and I thought heads would drop from your side, but the complete opposite happened, and then minutes later we conceded. After that, we could kind of slowly see us losing control of the game, and then when the second goal went in for Scotland to put you guys ahead, that's when we completely collapsed mentally, and from there on it felt inevitable. Like there was nothing that Greece could do, I think, to get themselves back into the game. Although I will say that there were a couple of fantastic chances by Konstantinos Karetsis that were well saved by the goalkeeper, and then the third goal went in, and it was just hammer blow. Reality set in, and while we still had a chance against Denmark in Copenhagen, we had to, at the very, very least, get a draw. But we all knew a win was ideal there, and as things transpired, that didn't happen either, and that's why we are not going to another tournament for the 6th time in a row. 12 years of hurt and counting for Greece.
Well, Scotland had a lot longer than 12 years. Come on, Stephen. Robbie, when you're a player or a manager and you've maybe failed in some way, in this case Greece, to qualify for such a big tournament, how difficult do you think it will be for them to raise themselves for a game like this?
I think it depends what the manager, how he kind of frames the game, and how he picks the team. Does he go with a more experienced team to try and get some more points on the board, make it look a little bit better? Does he go for some of the new emerging talent that's coming through? If he does that, then there'll be obviously a bit of a lack of experience, but probably a bit more energy about the team, a bit more enthusiasm and optimism. So it's very difficult to tell what the team will actually look like. Will it be more experienced? Will it be younger? And that'll kind of dictate. So it'll be difficult for Steve to really see what's going to be coming, I think.
Stephen, taking on what Robbie said there, what would you expect to happen in terms of Greece selecting the team, experience, or maybe try and build for the future a little bit?
We're hoping from the fans' perspective that it's a mixture of both, because at the end of the day, there's still some experienced players in this Greece squad that can offer a lot. There's 3 names that have been called up to the national team. Nektarios Triandis, who plays for Minnesota United. Babis Kostoulas, who signed for Brighton and Hove Albion for a big fee in the summer from Olympiacos. And also Andreas Tete, who He's come into the team from some good form in the Super League with Githisia, a smaller team from Athens. So we're hoping to see some minutes from them. I mean, in the Scotland game, it's going to be interesting because I think Ivan Jovanovic maybe will probably start a more experienced team for that game. And then for the game we have against Belarus, give some of the younger guys / players with less caps a run out there, because just to give them a bit of a confidence boost, in the hope that we win that game as well. But it's going to be interesting. At the end of the day, this Greece team has to show far more than what they did in the September game against Denmark and October international break, because this team has all the talent in the world, but until they can get that big game winning experience on a consistent basis, we're not going to any major tournaments in the foreseeable future. But this team definitely has the talent, and we have the manager as well. The majority of fans still back Ivan Jovanovic, but there were some calls for him to get sacked, understandably. If you don't reach a tournament and you say that's the aim, then, well, there's some justification there from some fans. But I believe Jovanovic is the right manager for us for this point in time. And we'll have to see. Like, it's weird going into this game because it feels like it's a dead rubber for us at the end of the day. But we like I said, we hope to see a lot more than what we did the last couple of months.
Robbie, if you are Steve Clarke, would you be sending your side out to go for the jugular to an extent, given that everything we're talking about in terms of Greece, but also given the opportunity that Scotland had ahead of them, that it's one they probably need to go and try and grasp, I would imagine?
I think it is. It's one we have to go and try and win the game, to be honest with you, because Denmark play Belarus and Saturday as well, and then we play them obviously on Tuesday. So the points, if they get up to 13, it's going to be difficult for us. Them with a goal difference as well. So I think we need to go and try and win it. I think in the home game, it was a pretty attacking team we put out, although we had McTominay up front. I expect it to be pretty similar. We all know Steve, he's not going to go out and go all out attack. It'll be pretty solid, but I do think there'll be an emphasis on trying to win the game rather than just taking a point, which kind of shows you how far we've come in recent years, which is great. I think like 5-6 years ago we'd be sitting there going, just let's try and take a point, but now we're going there and really hoping to win in Athens.
Stephen, given everything you were saying there about, there still seems from what you're saying to be a little bit of positivity around the national team there. Is that widespread, like throughout Greece, that maybe they see something is building and the failure just now is something they're maybe to an extent prepared to accept?
For the most part, I would say so, because this, like I said, this team is so young and the potential is so high. We've said many times before since the game since the playoffs for the Nations League at Hampden, then with Konstantinos Skaretsas and Yannis Konstantelias and Christos Solis being the big names that are coming through that have so much time and so much potential for the future. I think this was a setback. There wasn't an expectation, we absolutely will qualify for the World Cup. It was with this team and with this manager put together, this is the best team we've had in a very long time. And so we did have hope, and we did think that we'd at least compete for second place longer than we have done. If you go out of the World Cup qualifiers, you hope to go to the very end with a chance of reaching a major tournament, and it feels like we have gone out with a whimper way too soon. So there is time. The European Championships is now the aim. We have the Nations League as well, Nations League A, which will be very difficult and be a big test for this team. But we have to. It's going to pile on the pressure even more for them. That we must reach the Euros, otherwise, not only once we get to that point of the European Championships in 2028 being our joint longest stretch of between tournaments that we've not qualified for, if we don't reach the Euros, it will beat our longest record, because it was between 1980 for the European Championships when we made our first ever tournament debut to our World Cup debut in 1994. That was a 14-year gap. So once we reach the next Euros, it'll be another 14-year gap. And if we don't reach it, well, there you go. It's going to be even longer for us to witness Greece being a major tournament, which, especially with this team, with the talent they have, it would be a huge disservice to themselves.
Sometimes I just think it's only Scotland that go through these big long periods of not qualifying for things. It's interesting to hear what you're saying there, Stephen. Robbie, in terms of, I think Stephen used the word pressure there. Now, I use the word opportunity about what lies ahead for Scotland here, but there obviously becomes pressure because the whole country gets so excited and the expectation grows and grows and grows. How do you think Steve Clarke would go about trying to manage the pressure that comes with trying to reach a first World Cup in so long?
I think like Steve's very, very experienced, and he's also got a lot of experienced players now within the group. So I don't think it'll be a major issue for them. They'll take it in their stride, really. Some of these guys have played in, Serie A, Champions League finals, things like that, in the Premiership in England. So I don't think it'll be too much pressure. And Steve, as we know, is a very kind of calm guy. So I think it'll be all focus on the team. I think there's a few selection issues for him with regards to the team, the guys not getting game time. So I think that'll be his biggest concern. But I don't think the pressure side of it, Steve's been very successful recently getting us to tournaments. This would be the kind of cherry on the cake for him if he can get us to the World Cup.
In terms of selection, Robbie, what are you expecting?
I think, as we all know, the biggest issue is going to be the goalkeeping situation for us. All three goalies that are within the squad, haven't played a lot or haven't been playing as we classify as the highest level. Probably Scott Bain's the only one. I think he's got 13 appearances so far this season. Craig Gordon's got 0. I think Liam Kelly's got 1. Out of the three, Craig's probably the most experienced and the one that Steve knows the best, but he's not been playing, obviously. So I think that's a huge decision for us. And then at the end of the pitch again, scoring goals, what do we do? Do we go with Shea Adams again? Or do we go McTominay, which is more of a kind of defensive aspect? So yeah, I think that the bit in between the defence and the midfield is pretty solid, and I think Steve will know, but I think both ends and probably the most important part of the pitch in both boxes is where the biggest decision will be.
Stephen, on that goalkeeping issue, it's something that sort of rumbles on for Scotland and looks quite bad at the moment, given what Robbie's saying there. Is it something that there's an awareness of in Greece, and is that something they might look to exploit in this game?
Yes, I mean, I've always said, I think in terms of Scotland, I would say that goalkeeping-wise and defence-wise is something that, well, excluding obviously the performances on paper, Greece have a pretty strong defence normally on paper, and in terms of our goalkeeping, it's the same compared to when it comes to Scotland. I mean, I think it was Craig Gordon who played in the last game at Hampden Park, and I mean, despite perhaps not getting consistent game time, he made some fantastic saves, especially in the later end of the game against Konstantinos Garetsas. So, I think it's just a thing on the day. What I would say about Scotland is you guys have the strong mentality to win when all the chips are down, and this is something we were familiar with when going into the game against Scotland, because we've seen where there have been games where, despite maybe the stats showing one side perhaps dominating more than the other, Scotland have been able to get the results where needed to reach major tournaments more recently than us, and that's what Greece lack. Talent can only take you so far. If you have that grit to win these games and come from behind, take your opportunities, even if you have less opportunities than the opposing side, that's where Scotland's biggest strengths are over Greece at the moment, and that's why you're at the very least going to the playoffs. So, and going back to what Greece can do in this game, I guess now we just have to disrupt you guys from potentially finishing top, because if a win for us would almost certainly make it very difficult for you going into your last game against Denmark.
Yeah, Robbie, taking on what Stephen said there about Scotland, last couple of games, it's 6 points, but a lot of focus on the performances, which weren't great overall. I think it's fair to say. Taking that forward into this game, in a way, is it a positive or a negative that the performances weren't good? Because as Stephen sort of alluded to there, they still got the job done.
Yeah, I think the Belarus game is a difficult game to play in. Expectations are so high. They actually passed the ball pretty well and made it very difficult because there was no pressure on them at all. So I think, that expectation level was there. But as Stephen touched on there, which I thought was very interesting and very true, is that Scotland went through that period where we weren't getting to championships, World Cups. So you don't have that experience of winning these big games to get you there. And we've started to do that now. We've started to qualify for these. So the guys know, one, how to get to the tournaments, but also how to play in these big games within the tournaments. And I think that comes from, obviously the experience we have in the team with your Robertsons and guys like that have played McTominay's at a high level and know how to win these games. And I think it'll put us in good stead for these types of games. Going to Athens, though it's not a must-win, it kind of is because we play Denmark, play against Belarus, so we have that experience, and I think you only gain that by winning these types of games previously to get to tournaments.
Stephen, let's drill in, if we can, into what you expect the Greece team to look like when they line up against Scotland.
Well, there's going to be a couple of missing options. So, firstly, Konstantinos Mavropanos from West Ham has not been called up due to injury, as has Yannis Konstantelias, one of the focal points in attack, and Fotis Ioannidis is out injured for about 4 to 6 weeks as well. So there's a couple of names that we would probably most likely start. And if this game still meant anything for Greece's qualification, it'd be a huge blow for us, particularly Konstantelias. But I envisage Ivan Jovanovic playing mostly an experienced team for this game against Scotland, and then depending on how the game goes, bringing on a couple of younger players or players that are due to make their debut as well. I mean, I can go through the team as well if you like. Like, I can literally go through player for player if you fancy.
Well, we'll maybe not go through every single player, but one player I did want to mention was the Hearts winger Alexandros Kizaridis, who's been in absolutely great form. Is he on Greece's radar at all, in your view?
He surely is. I was quite surprised that he didn't get called up, to be honest. He was one of the few players that wasn't given an opportunity this time round. I hope that Ivan Jovanovic does, because it's Hearts this season is a fantastic story, and he's been brilliant for them. And just to have that option on the wing, which we even with our players on the wings who are really, really talented and have a lot of potential, we still lack a lot of depth on the wing. So I would have loved Kizaridis to come for this international break. It would have given him some really valuable experience. So I can understand Jovanovic not wanting to kind of disrupt the team so much by bringing in loads of new players out of the blue and excluding players who have been there under him since he came in the last couple of years. But yeah, he hasn't been called up this time, and I really hope that he does in the near future.
Robbie, from your mansion in Belgium there, have you been following him, and are you maybe surprised that he's not in that squad?
I'm surprised with his form. Obviously I don't really know the Greek squad positionally, if they've got guys ahead of him or anything like that, but he's been doing fantastically well, that's for sure. So they must have some good players if he can get in it.
Is that an issue, do you think, that some foreign players that come to Scotland trying to break into their national teams, do you think maybe at times it's a problem there because maybe how the Scottish leagues are viewed?
I think it is, yeah. I think that does cause a problem because, would you rather take a guy who's doing really well in Scotland or somebody who's maybe more of a squad player in a Premiership club or Serie A or one of these so-called bigger leagues? So I think it can be difficult, but if he continues doing what he's doing and scoring goals and playing well, he'll eventually force his way into it, especially if Greece go through a wee bit of transition period after this tournament. Then I would expect him, if his form continues, to be around about it.
I'm sure Steve Clarke's checking whether he's got a Scottish granny anyway. We'll see. In terms of Scotland going to Athens, Stephen, give us the insight, give us the key messaging that you think will make Scotland win the game. Tell us all, come on.
The key messaging to make Scotland win the game. If you beat us, you have a very good chance of going to the World Cup automatically. Motivation in itself. And Scotland did win last time you guys came to the Yorgos Karayiskakis Stadium, and our home form isn't fantastic at the moment. So there's doubly an opportunity there for Scotland to get their second win in a row in Greece. But like I said, this is one where we have to not only perform well at home, which we haven't done for a while, but show that there is grit to this team and show that the project as a whole still has potential, which it does anyway. But I just think they have to give the fans some confidence going into especially the Nations League, but more importantly, the next European Championship qualifiers, because we're the second best team record-wise in the Nations League, but that doesn't get you to a major tournament. It's impressive. We're pleased about that. We're pleased to be in Nations League A, but ultimately we want to see Greece in a major tournament. It's a whole generation's gone by who haven't had the fortune of seeing Greece play at the World Cup or at the Euros, and especially with the team coming through, we have keep emphasizing this team is so much potential. It cannot afford to waste that.
Yeah, Robbie, one Scotland player that isn't going to feature is going to be Billy Gilmour, of course. How big a blow do you think that is, given what he delivers for Steve Clarke?
Yeah, I think he's a different type of player than probably any that we've got in the squad because he's a game changer. So I think he'll be a big blow. Would he have started the game? I'm not too sure. I think we maybe went for a bit more strength and power in there initially, but I think he would definitely come on at some point. So yeah, it's a blow that he's not going to be involved. I think as we touched on, the key will be both ends, which for me will be striker and goalkeeper. So yeah, it's a difficult one not to have him for the game, but I think we've got Doak in there that's got a moment in him as well. Christie at times has got a moment in him, so we've got a few other guys that can cover.
Right, we'll wrap things up. Stephen, tell me, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think the score will be?
Well, like I said, we're all quite pessimistic going into this game because, like we said, there's not a huge amount for us to look forward to in terms of a tournament. But I do have a feeling that Greece will perform better than they did in the Scotland game, particularly after the hour mark in the game in Hampden Park. I have a strange suspicion we might win this one.
Optimistic. Robbie?
I think it'll be a very tough game, but I think Scotland will win it, and I think we'll win it by like one goal, whether that's a 1-0 or a 2-1. I think it'll be very close, but I think we'll just have enough just from experience to get over the line.
Good place to end. A bit of positivity. Thanks to you, Robbie. Thanks to you, Stephen. That's all we've got time for. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day, so make sure you don't miss out. Subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on your phone. Thanks very much for listening.